My name is Christine Cole. I'm 32 years old, a financial analyst living in Boise, Idaho. Thanksgiving was supposed to be the one place where I could exhale the comfort of home, the smell of turkey in the oven, the laughter that comes when family gathers. Instead, I was handed betrayal wrapped in velvet. My parents slid a tiny box across the table. I thought it might hold jewelry or some sentimental heirloom, but when I opened it, there was only a folded bank statement. My brother's name was printed at the top, along with a debt balance of $250,000. My father's eyes locked on mine, cold and unyielding. His voice didn't rise, but it carried authority like a gavel striking wood. You'll take care of this. As if my life, my work, my future existed only to clean up my brother's wreckage. I shook my head. My words were steady no. That single refusal cracked the air like lightning. A glass tipped. Red wine splashed against my skin, sharp and chilling as it ran down my cheek. My mother's voice, once the sound of comfort, now cut like a blade. Get out. I stood there, stunned, staring at the people who had raised me, who I had called mom and dad. In that instant, something inside me shattered and reformed. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a wallet they could open at will. Have you ever discovered your value to someone in just one brutal second? Tell me in the comments, if it had been you that night, what would you have done? Now, every morning when I wake up in Boise, I remind myself, I lost a family that night, but I found my self-worth. Part 2. Growing up responsible, unseen, and weighted. I wake before dawn, chasing a moment of quiet before the world's demands begin. The apartment is small, but it's mine, hardwood floors, a skyline of glittering city lights. This place wasn't given to me. I built it brick by brick with sleepless nights, missed weekends, and a discipline that cost me more than I like to admit. People say I'm responsible as if it's a crown. But to me, the word always feels heavy, like a chain. Growing up, responsible meant invisible. It meant fixing what broke without ever being asked if I could. My brother got stages and sympathy, trophies for his wins and excuses for his losses. I got silence, good grades, and the unspoken duty to keep everything from falling apart. By 14, I'd already learned the cruelest truth. Saving doesn't equal safety. It's just another expectation. Christine will handle it, they'd say, and each time my chest folded inward a little more. Holidays weren't warmth, they were performance. Hugs lasted a beat too short. Compliments sounded like chores. Practical, useful, never cherished. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I plotted a hiking trip instead. I wanted pine air in my lungs, the smell of wood smoke, and a sky full of stars. Freedom. Silence. But then my phone lit up. A text from Mom, come home. We miss you. My chest tightened, nostalgia sparring with suspicion. Sarah, my closest friend, had warned me. They only reach out when they need something. Don't fall for it. I laughed it off, but her words bruised me from the inside. Still, I longed for the kitchen light and the scent of apple pie. I wanted Dad's corny jokes, the ones that used to make me groan. I wanted Mom to look at me and see me, not my bank account. Hope is dangerous when history wears a smile. But I packed anyway. Wine for Dad, a scarf for Mom. I chose a sweater that felt like myself, not perfection. On the drive to Idaho Falls, I rehearsed forgiveness like a speech. I swallowed my old hurts whole. The house smelled like my childhood, and for a moment I let myself believe. But their questions circled the same terrain. Jobs, promotions, savings. Not love, not me, just numbers. I should have listened to my doubts instead of their bright, practiced smiles. Part 3. A dinner full of questions about money. I arrived in Idaho Falls under a sky the color of dull metal. The driveway hadn't changed, but my heartbeat had, uneven, wary. I carried gifts like offerings, wine, a scarf, a book to bridge the silence of years. Dad's hug was too tight, louder than I remembered, almost like a performance. Mom's smile was stretched thin, her voice rehearsed as she ushered me inside. The house was dressed in roasted turkey and cinnamon, nostalgia staged like a set. By the fireplace, my brother grinned, an arm slung around his wife. Hey sis, he said, as if the closeness had ever been real. Her smile was polite, but her eyes weighed me like a ledger. I handed out gifts. Thanks came back hollow, perfectly on script. The table gleamed, golden turkey, whipped potatoes, almonds on the green beans. I used to love this spread, the sound of forks and Dad's bad jokes. For a second, memory reached for me, but unease curled through the room like smoke under a door. Mom leaned closer, voice soft but angled. So how's work? How much have you saved? The tone casual, the blade deliberate. You're doing so well, she added, her eyes skimming past mine. Dad nodded too fast, like he was waiting for his cue. I tried to steer the conversation to safer ground, Boise restaurants, weekend trails. But they dragged it back. Promotions, retirement plans, investment strategies. My brother bragged about his real estate project, his game changer. His smile was wide, but his eyes twitched like a salesman pitching to himself. My sister-in-law chimed in, her praise coated with calculation. You must have a pretty big nest egg by now. The words were sugared. The math behind them was sharp. I forced a laugh. My stomach tightened with every glance. Sarah's warning whispered louder. They call when they need you. I wanted to argue with the voice in my head. Instead, I counted forks and knives, avoiding their eyes. The fireplace glowed, but the room felt windowless, cold. Whatever this was, it wasn't family. It was a setup. Grandpa sat near the window, quiet, hands folded over his cane. He watched the small things, the timing of reaches, the dodging of questions. When Dad laughed too hard, Grandpa's eyebrows pulled together. When Mom praised me, his gaze dropped to her knuckles. He caught my eye, his look a careful warning. Not fear exactly, more like, don't ignore the pattern again. I sipped water and tasted metal, counted heartbeats between questions. My brother's voice rose when money circled back to me. My sister-in-law's smile held, but her jaw clenched harder. I started mapping exits without meaning to. The hall, the porch. Hope kept knocking. Memory kept bolting the door. The turkey cooled while their plans warmed. I felt like inventory waiting to be tallied, not kin to be cherished. They applauded my discipline, not my being. Applause sounds different when it's tied to your balance sheet. I set my napkin down and finally named it, bait. This wasn't Thanksgiving. It was a menu. And I was the main course. Part 4. The $250,000 debt and the wine glass. We all moved into the living room for gifts, the fire snapping in soft bursts, the air heavier than wrapping paper should make it. Mom passed me a small velvet box, her hands careful, her smile too practiced. Dad's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I expected something harmless, a necklace, maybe a keepsake. Instead, inside was a folded document, sharp edges, official lettering. A bank notice. My brother owed $250,000. Past due. What is this? My voice came out smaller than I meant. Dad leaned forward, voice hard. Your brother's debt. You'll take care of it. Not an ask, not a request. A verdict already cast. I turned to my brother. His smile had hardened to stone. His wife clung to his arm, face unreadable. Why me? I asked, holding the paper steady in my lap. Mom's tone softened, the one she uses before a shove. Sweetheart, you're doing so well. This is what families do. I can't fix this, I said, tasting iron in the back of my throat. My sister-in-law's eyes flickered sharp for a moment, then smoothed to glass. I work at the bank, she said flatly. I know your savings. $700,000. You can cover this. Her words hit like a thief rifling through my life. All the years of skipped trips, late nights, discipline, turned into ammunition against me. I placed the folded notice on my lap. It's his debt, not mine. My brother leaned forward, his voice hard, mocking. Come on, sis. It's just money. It's family, Mom pressed, her words like a sprung trap. You've got the means, Dad added. What kind of daughter says no? I'm not paying, I said, each word landing like a lock turning shut. Dad shot up, chair screeching across the floor like metal dragged on stone. He grabbed a glass of red wine, stem groaning in his hand. You ungrateful child, he hissed. The wine hit me in a rush, cold, sticky, sharp across my face and down my blouse, staining under the lamplight. The room gasped. Mom stood, her voice precise, sharpened in another room long before this night. If you won't help your brother, leave. My hands trembled as I wiped my face, heart hammering. I looked at each of them, searching for anything human. Found nothing. I won't be your solution, I said, reaching for my coat. My brother half rose, but shrank back under the silence. My sister-in-law's lips pressed thin, refusing my eyes. From the corner, Grandpa watched. His gaze didn't waver. Something waiting there, ready. The fire cracked. The smell of cinnamon curdled to smoke in my throat. I stepped out the door into a night that held itself still and shut it behind me. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. The truth hadn't even broken yet. Part 5. Grandpa's Revelation and Family Collapse. The living room sagged into silence after I left. Grandpa stood slowly, leaning on his cane, his eyes sharp as winter ice. Dad stared into the fire as though it might burn away his shame. Mom smoothed her dress, smoothing over everything, pretending control. My brother sat stiff, his charm peeled away. His wife folded her arms across her chest, chin high, banker's mask pulled tight. I've had enough, Grandpa said, his voice low, steady, absolute. You threw wine at your daughter to cover for a liar. His cane struck once on the floor, heavy as a gavel. That debt isn't for a business. It's casinos, cars, vacations. He held up statements from the family account, papers trembling with proof. Nevada withdrawals, a BMW, flights to Paris, 250,000 wasted. He turned to Dad. And you hid it. You pushed her to pay for it. Dad opened his mouth, but no words came. Mom whispered, please. Not for truth, but for quiet. Grandpa faced my brother, disappointment carved deep in his stare. You aimed Christine at your mess like she was a tool. You wanted her to carry your shame. My sister-in-law stiffened. I was protecting family. No, Grandpa snapped. You were counting on someone else's money. He pulled out his phone and dialed. On the road back to Boise, my phone buzzed. I pulled over, hands still shaking, and answered. Christine, Grandpa said, his tone softer now. You deserve the truth. That debt, it's gambling, cars, travel. I saw it all. I heard the whispers in the kitchen. I should have spoken sooner. I'm sorry. His apology cut sharper than Dad's whine ever could. It was the first time someone had chosen me over convenience. Thank you, I whispered. I won't be their answer anymore. Back in that living room, Grandpa's voice carried iron. You will apologize, he told Dad. You will fix this, and you will leave Christine out of your schemes. The silence thickened, heavy with guilt and shrinking pride. My brother tried weakly, we're family. Then act like it, Grandpa thundered. By morning, the story had spread. Aunt Martha and Uncle Stephen called, their voices firm, supportive. No pity, just a place for me to stand. In Idaho Falls, whispers crept through halls where my parents' reputations once sat strong. At the bank, eyes turned cold toward my sister-in-law. At church, Dad's handshake hung ignored. Mom's book club met without her, one chair left empty. I changed my passwords, opened a new account in Boise, saved every statement, every call log. And I chose silence. Not the silence they wanted, the silence of obedience, but one of boundaries, of refusal. Their theater ended where my line began, and I carved that line deep. Part 6, Boise, Boundaries, and Christine's New Beginning. Mornings became my sanctuary. The steady rhythm of running filled my lungs with air that felt new, uncluttered. The miles gave me silence where my mind could settle. At work, I rediscovered clarity, numbers clean and impartial, steady truths that didn't twist, wound, or demand. My apartment, once just a place to crash, started to glow differently. Sunlight through the blinds didn't feel borrowed anymore. It felt like it belonged to me, like I belonged there. I changed every passcode. I opened a fresh bank account. I locked doors and checked them twice, not from paranoia, but from reverence for the life I was building. Protection, I realized, could be an act of love toward myself. Grandpa would call every couple of weeks. He never pressed, never demanded explanations. We talked about the weather, his tomato plants, and sometimes the heavier things that hung between us. He didn't cover for them, didn't dress their choices in excuses. He simply said, "I'm proud of you for choosing yourself." That single line stitched something inside me that their wine-soaked betrayal had torn apart. Aunt Martha sent snapshots of Sunday dinners, paper plates stacked high, cousins laughing, faces soft and kind. She always added the same note: "Whenever you're ready, we'll save you a chair." I wasn't ready. Maybe I wouldn't be for a while. But knowing the chair was there, waiting, mattered more than I could explain. Forgiveness, I came to understand, isn't an unlocked door for anyone to walk through. It's a fence I build, with a gate only I hold the key to. And sometimes that gate stays closed. Mom sent me a single message: "We miss you." No apology, no accountability, just a tug, gentle but manipulative, at strings I'd worked hard to cut. I didn't reply. Silence, I learned, can hold the same weight as a spoken boundary. Dad never reached out. My brother filled his feed with shiny resilience quotes, words that rang hollow against the truth I carried. The town carried on, but slower for them, like their world had been bruised in places they couldn't name. Some nights, when the wind cuts sharp through Boise, I think of that velvet box. How love dressed itself up as obligation and arrived with a bank notice tucked inside. How I confused interrogation for care, control for stability, and duty for affection. But the truth is clearer now. I can care about my family and still reject their snares. I can love them and still refuse to bleed for them. Both can be true, and I choose the second. If you've ever been pressured with words wrapped in ribbons, stop and breathe. Ask yourself, who gains when I break myself to say yes? You're not heartless for closing a door. You're not cruel for walking away. Sometimes the truest form of love is the one you give yourself by saying no. Maybe you've built a fence, too, a boundary that others called betrayal. If so, I want to hear your story. Others need to hear it, too. Leaving wasn't punishment. It was the first act of honest love I had ever given to me. And before I end here, if this story resonated with you, please like it, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe for more real stories of family, betrayal, and resilience. We all need reminders that we're stronger than the burdens we were told to carry.